she did cooking. She morning and leaves at 5 from Monday to Friday. Very 2000. So imagine you work 20 times. Like you do this for like a family of one kid, let's say, or just a single, I don't know. Imagine this 20 times. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The difference is so immense. So good.
It's very similar to the situation. Actually, like if you put also the conversion currency in mind, people who need 40 years use the same Yeah, you're the same per year. So if you make $1,000 per year, this means so you're making almost $3,000 a month. Months per year. Yeah. So
Keene State, New Hampshire, right? Last. Went to a soccer camp. I was in high school at Keene State. A lot of ages ago. I grew up in Vermont, so.
Where in Vermont?
St. Johnsbury.
Okay, up there.
Yeah, you been there?
No, I have some friends in St. Johnsbury. In Milton, Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
even farther.
Yeah, it's pretty isolated, pretty desolate.
I hear you.
Just no waters. Of course. Yeah. From New Hampshire? What part?
Lake Coxsackie.
Yeah, I was born in Wilton.
Okay.
So, yeah. In fact, my granddad, my grandparents, they had a little place off of Lakewood. What a beautiful area.
It's nice.
This fall, man. Clam chowder and lobsters. Oh man.
Do you go back often or no?
My mom still lives up there, so once or twice a year I get up there. And,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I try to, and and that's just it. So I went down south for college, and then I lived in the Midwest for a good amount of time. And now here on the coast is great, but I miss the hills.
Yeah, I
you
know.
know. And when we, like, my family's from Boston,
Well, I read
so
them
we
for
go
days.
visit a lot. But, you know, once you get up to, you know, up past Concord, it's just up through the notch, it's just different. A lot of hills, just a lot of,
Space. Do that for me right now.
yeah.
He's still there?
You can get lost up there, not be found for a long time. That's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, he was like, I
I
need
like
to be
not
there by
seeing
10.
I like
And I
not
was
seeing my
like, okay,
neighbors.
that's
Yeah. There's something nice about this, no doubt. So. All right, let's go ahead and we'll just kind of jump back into a few things here. We're going to shift gears a little bit. As you begin to think about this reflection for this week, there's a growing and important concept that in the academic area really kind of emerged around 2004 or so. And I think it's manifested itself pretty remarkably in practice since then over the last 20 years. And it's called value co-creation. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about this or kind of reviewing it, but the general idea is you've got firms, right, from week one who come into a marketplace, and you have customers who come into a marketplace, and somewhere in the middle there's a value proposition. Right? And so with the traditional idea, and you have the marketplace in there, and the traditional idea is that the company kind of looks at the market, they observe what the market wants and what they need, what the customer wants and what they need, and then they produce a product that satisfies that want and need, right? That's kind of the logic behind what we traditionally think of. So the customer has some want, some need, and the firms have the ability to produce a product or service that will satisfy it. So they bring to the market a product or a service. Okay? And we call that just kind of in general this value proposition. And what value co-creation says is something just a little bit different. Basically what it says is that the firms can bring to the market a product. But until the product is used, no value has been created. All right? And this is like a kind of a really important concept, just in a big picture. So the Expo Dry Erase Company can produce this dry eraser, or dry erase marker, this marker, right? This company, Expo, can create this marker. But until somebody picks up the marker, opens it up, and writes something on the board, until that happens, they haven't created anything. There's been no value created until the product is actually used, until it's actually put into use. A car is a beautiful car, but if it sits in the driveway or sits on the dealer's lot, it hasn't created any value to anybody until somebody gets in it and uses it, right? So this whole kind of concept suggests that value really isn't created by firms. It's created when the firm's output is put into use. And so, you know, it's called co-creation of value. Co-creation of value co-creation. And again, it's like kind of makes sense, but it's kind of important that if a company takes a real strict company-centric view, then they say, well, look, we got a factory, we do production, we produce this product, that's what we do. Okay, but what if nobody uses what you do? What if it's like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a noise? You know, if nobody uses what you do, then you have not created any value. You have not created anything of value. You've just used up resources and you're useless, basically, right? So that's kind of this idea. Now, take this the next step. Let's say that if the customer is required in order for value to be created, then what if the customer plays an active role in creating the value? Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, the firm can, for instance, I'm just going to kind of throw something out, like have the parts or the components of a product, but what if the customer organizes them and creates the product that they want based on the component parts that are there? Okay, so you walk up to the machine, and inside the machine there's carbonated water and there's all these syrups. And, you know, Coke could dispense Coke. They could dispense Sprite. They could dispense a couple of the products that they offer. Or the customer could go up there and they could pick and choose what flavors they want and what mix and all of this. And they could create the unique product of a carbonated beverage that they designed. They designed a beverage because they were given the opportunity to mix and match ingredients and stuff like that. It wasn't Coke who created that beverage. They facilitated the ability for the customer to do it, but the customer did it. The customer created the product that they wanted using the ingredients and the components that were in the machine that Coke offered. Does that make sense? Is that kind of like this idea that they're creating an opportunity or they're facilitating the ability for the consumer to craft the product in the way in which they want to craft it? So that's kind of the next step. Not just simply putting the product into use and saying that's useful and that's code and that's great, but the co-creation of value. Next step is where the customer plays an active role in creating what they consume. Okay, so this is like really, really kind of interesting. Let's take, forgive me, because I don't know all the social platforms, but let's take a social platform where you can create a video and you can post it and other people can look at it, right? Which is is it TikTok or Instagram or? Help me out. They all do. Okay, they all do. That's how bad I am. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So, but when you look at content on one of those social platforms, you're looking at co-produced content. You're looking at content that other users have produced. TikTok didn't produce it. Instagram, the company, didn't produce it. Other users produced it. And maybe some companies out there, but let's not talk about them. Right? In other words, users are creating content that they are then consuming, if that makes sense. Isn't that kind of crazy? So this is like, this example though, is this on a whole nother level where the users create the content and the consumables that they ultimately consume. What has happened, though, is the company only created a mechanism for them to be able to do it. That's really all they did. They just created the means for the customers to create the value that they ultimately wanted to consume. The people at Instagram aren't choosing the topics. They're not choosing the content. They're not choosing, it's not like the good old days where you had a TV network that chose the show that you were going to watch because that's what they were going to show at 8 o'clock on Thursday, right? I mean, that was all determined by the producer, the TV network, and all of that, and the people had to watch it because that's what was on. This is not, this is like, I'm going to choose the own script. I'm going to choose the story. I'm going to choose the characters. I'm going to choose, how the story ends. And I'm going to create this awesome thing, and I'm going to love it, and my friends are going to love it too, right? No company is doing this for me. I'm producing it. So this is this concept of co-creation. Now, again, like, what about choosing your own price? Creating your own price points. Maybe I don't want to spend as much for a product, so maybe I'm willing to customize the product to take away a few of the bells and whistles and it'll cost less. I can customize things like that. But I create the value. I create the value proposition in this kind of world where the customer has control to do that. Okay, so this is kind of the concept that I'm trying to shoot for this week's discussion. And it throws on its head this idea that companies produce products and services. Companies don't produce products. Companies produce opportunities for customers to use products and services. They don't actually produce the value that is eventually realized as a result of it. They facilitate it. So think about how companies can facilitate consumption. And I think that's really, really kind of an important concept when you start like thinking about where markets are moving, thinking about where value is placed. I mean, if you're forced to use a product, how much backlash do we get from that? How much negative impression is that or whatever? And I think that's kind of where it is. One of the articles that's associated with this talks about Game of Thrones. And this is an old article, but it's just kind of a cool idea. If you're a producer for a TV show like Game of Thrones, some people watched it or seen it, are familiar with it, right? Super popular HBO for a few years, based on a set of novels. So, like, imagine though you're writing the script and you're partway through production. And you're releasing some episodes. And while you're releasing episodes, you're monitoring social media. And you're looking at blogs, and you're looking at your brand community groups. So you're looking at the groups of consumers and kind of like, what are they seeing? We have these like really crazy fans. And the crazy fans are talking about these storylines that they think are going to unfold in the story. We're still in production. We're still rolling out these shows. Hey, wait a minute. What if we do some social listening, we listen to these storylines, and we incorporate some of these storylines into the actual script? How cool is that? So in other words, like, we don't have the product set. The product's not okay. Allow me to deviate and say we're not going to follow the book, but we're gonna go away from the book. So let's not worry about that. But what we'll do is listen to the voice of the customer, and we'll modify the actual scripts, the actual storylines to reflect some of the kind of concepts that they're developing themselves. Isn't that kind of the same idea where customers are creating the product that they're ultimately consuming in a real dynamic and interesting way? And then, all of a sudden, you have these fans, oh, I was right, they did do this, and whatever, and the king died, or, they all did, I think, right, by the end of that one, and the dragons, whatever. Yeah? So that's kind of an interesting kind of extension or story. I mean, I know that the article just kind of talks a little bit about that interaction and that social reading that can happen. But I want you to be able to apply it to the evolving nature of how products are created, and allowing. And then the question at the end of the day is, if you're the company, how okay are you with relinquishing control of the value that you're producing? Like, because remember, if the customers are controlling some of this or controlling what the ultimate product is, I mean, what if in Game of Thrones, what if you had a bunch of customers or fans who were just took the story in a wildly different direction and you stuck to it and it just went off the rails? Like, there's a risk here. There's a risk involved with this that you might consider in a far out way. Okay, so that kind of touches a little bit on the reflection for this next week. Again, it's the 10th one. It's the last one. We have 10 reflections, so we're kind of right. You're not too happy, I don't think. I'm looking at you. A big old smile. I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't go on forever. That's all right. That's all right. We're trying to get as much done as we can with the time that we have, right? So, all right. Let's. All right, so with a little bit of time that we have, I mean, I want to spend some of our effort talking a little bit about distribution. And again, this chapter hits on distribution, promotion, and pricing. And there are, again, if you go to Moodle, there are a whole bunch of files because there's just so much information that we do not have time to cover. So I happen to like pricing a lot, so we spend a lot of time with that. And I do a lot with distribution strategy. The short little article that you have right there talks about Sherwin-Williams, and it's just kind of just an example. Again, the PBR Miller Coors example is kind of similar in some respects, but it's this idea of finding channels and finding channel partners who you can work with that will, in this case, distribute your product, but also each partner benefits. And so when we talk about distribution, supply chain, and some of the stuff like that, what this really is a story of is the relationship your company has with other companies. Inter-firm relationships are vitally important to how business operates, especially in marketing. And to a dramatic way, kind of in marketing, we have certain skill sets, but we need other companies to be able to leverage and exploit those skill sets together. Okay, so we'll spend a little bit of time. We'll just kind of see where we get to over the next 20 or 30 minutes or so, and kind of see what we can get in. But at the end of the day, when we talk about supply chains, when we talk about channel designs, what we're talking about is bringing products to the market or letting the market itself draw products from us, right? Again, that relationship between the firm and the customer kind of coming in the middle. This is another one of those sort of examples. So traditionally what we might think of is this idea that we create a product and it is our job to push it onto a market. Because we can create it, that's what we'll do. We will create the supply and we will sell it downstream to whoever will buy it. The reverse, though, suggests that there's demand in the marketplace that we will supply, that we will satisfy. And so, kind of when we think about this demand-first perspective, it sort of shifts and changes the way we think about production. If we are a company that produces goods, then we're going to produce goods whether the market wants it or not. If we're a company that satisfies demands, then what we create will change based on what those demands are. So again, this extreme example of customers creating the product for us, is kind of this in a nutshell. But in this demand chain, as opposed to what might be called a supply chain, our goal is to be able to sense and respond to market changes, right? So when the needs of the customer change, then our products reflect that. If this is kind of the perspective that we're taking, if we are reacting to demand as opposed to just simply producing a supply, then our products are going to be nimble, our products are going to change, our products are going to reflect what the market is looking for, and some things like that. And so, again, I know Michael Porter has produced a number of different models we've kind of looked at, or at least the Five Forces model. Another real popular one that he's developed is something called the value chain. Now, we're not going to go into the details of that model, except that there's this concept that when we're producing value, it's a series of events that happen. Okay, so I'm going to kind of put this all up here at once. So I may be a producer, right, Tanner? And I might be able to, create a product, but I can't bring that product to market by myself. It just simply can't work, right? I need partners. I need people who are going to help me. I need people who will drive the trucks. I need people who put it on the shelf as a retailer. I need people who do packaging. I need people who do R&D. I need suppliers, right? So no single company is going to say, look, I'm going to produce value in the marketplace and I'm not going to do it with anybody else. I'll do it alone. Like, just not something weird. So that necessitates this idea or this concept that we'll partner or we'll form relationships with other companies. Now, here's part of the theory goes like this. Look, if I'm the customer, I pay for the product, but a portion of what I pay for gets split up between all the different companies and all the different organizations who brought the product to me. Right? So what we look at is a collection of companies working together in a system that create value. This is the big concept that you can kind of take away with. So if I'm going to deliver value to the customer, and again, this falls under that P, place, whatever. It's really a lot different nowadays, but if I'm going to bring value to the customer, I've got to have a system of other companies that I work with. I can't do it alone, right? Each of the companies that I work with, each of these partners will receive profit. They'll receive money based on the price that the customer pays at the very end of the day. And so kind of relationship marketing, it's this term that we use. I mentioned it before. It's this relationship we form with other companies in order to produce a value or a system that will work. And this is like a strategic advantage. Like Nike, right? Nike has a product, they have production, they have suppliers, they have a system of companies they work with, they have distributors, they have retailers, they have media agencies, ad agencies, right? They've got hundreds of other companies they work with, and their system of companies produces a pretty good product, right? Well, Adidas does too. But Adidas's system is different. Adidas has different partners they work with, different companies they work. They have different policies. They have different systems, right? It's an entirely different system. However, both companies compete together in the marketplace. And here's the thing. The people who do these activities for one channel or one company, one chain, some chains work more efficiently than others. Some are just better than others. Walmart, as a retailer, created an incredibly efficient distribution system, in part using their warehousing systems and cross-docking technologies and some stuff like that, where nobody else was doing it at the time 40 years ago. And they became really efficient at that. So they became a really, really good company on distribution and volume. Right? And that was what kind of set them apart. So all I'm saying is when we create partnerships with companies, with other firms, our partnerships rest on the relationship we have with them, and the better it is, the better we're going to do. Okay, so just again, some context for what relationships might look like. There are all different kinds here that we can have. There are vertical relationships, and occasionally we'll have horizontal partnerships as well. And this is kind of a traditional look. You're probably familiar with seeing something like this, where we look from, sometimes it's drawn vertically, sometimes horizontally, but we have this idea where there are suppliers, and then there are producers, And then there are intermediaries between the producers and the end user who perform certain functions of distribution, breaking bulk, and a variety of other activities, negotiating and some things like that. There could be lots. We could have agents. I don't know if an agent is up there. There's not. But an agent could be in there. There could be wholesalers, warehousers, distributors, retailers, and the end user, not the European Union, the end user, EU, down there. And again, we could have multiple layers of partners that we work with. This is kind of a traditional look. You're probably familiar with this. If we look up, going down, that'd be a supply chain. If we look from our point to the customer, it's going to be a channel. How we reach the customer might be a different channel. So again, we got lots and lots of things we could talk about a semester's worth when we're dealing with channels and logistics and some stuff like that. Occasionally, we can go kind of horizontally from side to side where we partner with a company that might be considered a competitor, but also might be just considered a partner that we do a joint venture with, or we have some type of a relationship that we want to do business together for. And in a joint venture type of a scenario, we're actually creating something new that's never been done before. And we have maybe a product together or service together or something to that effect. Kind of one of the takeaways though here is that when you create a system of relationships, and we all have the goal of creating value, not everybody always performs as well as they can or they should. Okay, so let's say again, maybe I'm Nike and I have a distributor that we've worked with for a long time. If that distributor starts to underperform, then it's going to hurt the value of my product. The customers won't pay as much if the product's not on the shelf, for instance. There will be issues that evolve as a result of that distributor's poor performance. So if I'm Nike and I'm the channel captain, I'm in control here, and we're doing business with a distributor who's now underperforming, then I've got some decisions to make, right? I need to work with that distributor to get them to perform better, or I need to get rid of them, replace them, or I need to get rid of them and do the job myself, right? So this is kind of this idea of managing these relationships that you have within a system of companies that are going to bring products to the market. So you can see that, like, this is like a simple version of, oh, this is supply chain, this is a channel, it's just got these intermediaries. But the network of business that happens in a system like this is immensely complex. It's really interesting, it's really fascinating, especially when you start comparing some systems to others, because they don't all perform the same. Some do better, some simply do better than others. So key takeaways is that when we create a supply chain, every member of the supply chain adds value to the end user and the final product that we see. The customer pays a price, and everybody in the supply chain gets a little bit of that revenue, right? So everybody in the chain does something. If they don't, then they're not going to be in the chain. They have to perform a task. If the distributor is no longer doing what they need to do, they're going to leave. They're going to be kicked out. They're going to be replaced, right? Something along those lines. So every member of the chain, every member of what we're doing here contributes value. And again, ultimately the customer ends up paying for this. If members of the supply chain underperform, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be tension, and ultimately they may be asked to leave or modify their behavior. Now, when this happens, if that, in this case, distributor, if that piece of the solution or piece of the system doesn't get replaced, if one of the other members subsumes their responsibilities, so I'm not exactly sure how Walmart works, but I know there are a whole bunch of Walmart trucks. So I assume that as a corporation, they own their trucking system. in some capacity, not only their retail locations, but also distribution. So just imagine they used third parties or an external trucking company, and they got rid of that trucking company and started doing it themselves. That would be sort of a collapsing of the supply chain or collapsing of the system. When somebody leaves the system and is not replaced, but rather their work is done by somebody else, it's commonly called disintermediation. This is a term that you'll hear from time to time. It's not 100% uncommon. You will actually hear it. Companies can go back into a system, but when they leave or when the system's shortened, it's called disintermediation. So if I'm a manufacturer and I typically use a retail outlet to sell my product, but then someday I decide, look, I'm going to sell directly to the customer online, I'm going to get rid of the retailer, then that's a form of disintermediation. I'm collapsing the supply chain. I'm selling directly to the customer. I'm taking away the retailer. And in some ways, I'm becoming more efficient. Now, one of the challenges is whatever the retailer did, I now have to do. And there aren't a lot of manufacturers who are really good retailers. They're good at manufacturing because that's what they do, right? I mean, one of the reasons why we have retailers is because as manufacturers, we don't really want to get that close to the customer. And we say we do, but we really don't want to run retail stores. We want to manufacture, and we want to sell large volumes of our product to distributors who then sell it to retailers. So we hire retailers, and we work retailers into our system so that we don't have to do that job. And that makes us more efficient. That makes us better at what we do. But if we take away that retailer, then we gain the revenue that would otherwise be going to the retailer. So the carrot for us is that whatever the retailer was making by selling our product, we now make because we're doing this role ourselves. Okay, so managing the supply chain up and down is kind of a big deal. It's all more or less based on relationships, though, and kind of how well we work the relationships with our channel partners and our suppliers and so forth. So we call this managing our channel, or kind of thinking about, again, the relationships we have with other companies and how well we work with them, right? That's kind of a big deal when we talk about relationship marketing. And there are 7 or 8 kind of key outcomes here of a good working supply chain. So if we're working well with our partners, if we're bringing great value to the customer, certain things are going to happen, which will gain us competitive advantages. So again, remember, we're doing this, we're working with our partners so that we can bring a better product and value to the customer at the end of the day. When I do that, I'll sell more product and I'll make more money. Okay, so one key thing here from a well-designed, well-executing supply chain is simply the availability of goods to the market. One of our goals is to look at our penetration or saturation within a market, and if 80, 90, 95% of the market has access to our product, that's a good thing, right? If for whatever reason we can't reach people who would otherwise buy our product, that's a bad thing. So the better my supply chain, the bigger that percentage is going to be, right? It's going to lead to happier customers. Just imagine the idea of maybe doing a promotion or doing something where we are supposed to have the product on the shelf. Customers come into the store and it's a stock out. There's no product on the shelf. Customers are coming in to buy the product. It's not there. They're not happy. Right? They're not happy. Or it could be something like they go into the store and they want some advice about a product and the retailer can't give them information. Again, customer's not going to be happy with that. That retailer's part of our distribution strategy. They're an intermediary. If I'm relying on that distributor to give information and they're not able to do it, then that kind of blows part of my strategy. Right? That's not great. I mean, You know, would Nike prefer to sell its shoes at Walmart or in a branded Nike store? You know, when you go to a branded Nike store, they can help you. They're there to serve you and help you and make sure you've got the product that you want. You go to Walmart, are they there to serve you and help you and give you the product you want? I don't know. I get dirty looks when I walk around Walmart. No, I don't.
That's if you're lucky.
They ain't no workers there to do anything.
And I go to Walmart all the time, and it's just their business model, right? It's the way their retail is set up. If they offered better customer service, they probably have to raise their prices. I mean, at the end of the day, right? So it's not a knock against, it's just their business model. But does Nike, what do they want from their distribution strategy? Do they want their product in an environment where the customer is going to be helped with additional service? Or would they rather it be in an environment where it's not? And, you know, it all kind of like, again, you're buying a box of Fruit Loops, you don't need customer service. You just need it to ring up correctly, right? I mean, you don't need it. But if you're buying other products, you might need more at-level store support. And so picking that can really help. So encouraging promotional pushes, again, your partners can do this if they're working well with you. Promotional support may be just encouraging consumers and users to buy the product. Distributors may do advertising on your behalf. Retailers may do some advertising. Retailers may, if you work with them, you're the manufacturer, they may give you a better slotting space or a better location in the store for your product. You might be able to work more frequent end caps on the aisles, for instance, in the retail setting. Just kind of depending on, again, the relationship you have with them. But the more they're able to help push your product onto the customer. I mean, if you go into Best Buy and you have two different competing brands and you ask them, which one should I buy? Well, the folks there are going to help you, but you want them to, push the product that you probably get the most revenue from or the better relationship with the manufacturer, I would think. Okay, better transfers of information. Again, these are all like positive outcomes from strong supply chains. All right, strong relationships with your supply partners or your downstream channel partners. Okay, information flow is vitally important. So like if we want to know what the customer is saying about our products, we got to ask the retailers. The retailers need to be listening. And if the retailers can hear what the customer is saying and can pass that information on, that's fantastic. That's exactly what we want. That's what we need so that we can adapt and we can change, right? And the other way goes too. If I have information about my product, I want to get it to the customer in the market as well, okay? Increases in cost efficiencies, yep. The better and the more I work with my distributors and such. So like this is oftentimes a bulk issue as well. The more business I do with you, the lower our operational costs become. It's just one of those things. Being able to be nimble, being able to be flexible, is a key. Again, when we see shifts in the market, we want to be able to move product, change price. If we see some shifts in the market and there's a little bit more price sensitivity, if we can alter those prices at the store level quickly, that's a good thing. Again, product availabilities, if the product's selling out at one retailer but not at the other, we want to be able to shift those supplies as flexibly as we can. So absolutely. It creates a competitive advantage. And very importantly, when we have channel partners, when we have supply partners, we share risk. And this is like a really important idea in the sense that if I have a retail partner and I'm introducing a new product, part of the idea is if this new product does really, really well, the retailer is going to do well. They're going to make a lot of money on my new product that is real successful. The flip side of that, though, happens too. If this product isn't so successful, then the retailer is going to suffer a little bit of the pain. We're going to suffer a little bit of the pain, and we're going to share that together. So there's this shared risk idea that happens across partners. It's like, I don't know, it's like any type of team activity. If you're working in a team or a group and you have a common goal, an objective, you share the wins and you share the losses. But the losses don't sting quite as bad. Maybe they do, but if you're all in it together, at least you know you're all in it together. By the same token, this happens that, hey, look, if you're a distributor and one of your manufacturing partners is Nike, if you're struggling, Nike's a good partner to have probably. They're strong. They've got a strong brand. They've got strong brand equity. When they choose you as a distributor, there's something they're saying there that they're going to be a long-term partner probably, and they're going to have resources that will help you, if your business model is faltering a little bit here or there. If that makes sense, like if you have strong partners, then you'll be able to leverage that strength that they have in order to help support what you're doing. So again, this is like a shared responsibility type of a thing that kind of happens. Okay, which kind of lends its segues into this notion of these relationships and this relationship, kind of element that we have. Again, kind of this relationships echo a lot of what we talk about when we look at the benefits of strong supply chains. Again, happier customers, more efficiency, and things like that. When we develop interfirm relationships, it's typically along two dimensions, however. How long you're in the relationship for, and how much information sharing is allowed or permitted across firms. Okay, so my goal is, if I'm going to be in business, is to find partners that I can work with for a long time and ones that we can form deep relationships with. And the more that I can do in that regard, the longer our relationship together, the deeper it is, the more, all the good benefits come from that. We trust each other more, we're more committed, we can make plans, financial plans, and all of those types of things together. And things of that nature. There's actually a good amount of research talking about different levels of interfirm relationship strength, and there's 6 or 7 of these. We think about relationships that have just begun or just started as something called transactional. Now, again, think about how long the relationship has happened and how much information or depth there is here. If you have 2 businesses who work together and have transactional relationship, it just means that they do business occasionally. Their goal is not necessarily to always do business together, but we'll transact once, see how it goes. If things go well, we might do transactions again, but it's not guaranteed. Nothing is, set in stone. Okay. There are parallels between business relationships and human interpersonal relationships. If you see somebody at the coffee shop every Tuesday in passing, you're not deep friends, right? You're just, hey, how you doing? Oh, same coffee. Yep, see you next week, whatever, right? And that's kind of this idea, right? You're just passerbys. A friendly hello is all you're going to get, and that's fine. The next step, though, is what's called a repeated transaction. And this, again, in the business sense, is one where over a more consistent period of time, you do business with another partner. Maybe it becomes a consistent thing, but time is really kind of the repeated nature of the transaction over a series of months or weeks or whatnot kind of defines this type of relationship. A manufacturer is not through with his customer when a sale is completed. He's only started with the customer. In the case of an automobile, the machine is only something in the nature of an introduction by Henry Ford well over 100 years ago, right? The idea isn't just to transact once. The idea is to form consistent transactions, and these will be repeated transactions. Now, bear in mind, in these early relational stages, it doesn't mean the customer isn't going to other companies. That you're selling products to other customers, they're buying products from other firms. There's not a sense of obligation. It's just a consistency. Something of a routine is starting when this relationship forms as a repeated transaction. Okay, number 3, a repeated transaction that goes over a long period of time is a long-term relationship, right? Long-term relationships begin to establish some mutual trust and interdependence between each other. So I can consistently expect that the product is going to have a certain degree of quality. The prices will be consistent. I begin to learn the salespeople who I work with. I begin to form a relationship with, again, the people of the company. This isn't just a transaction. I know their names. They know me. We see whatever. It's something that is, kind of a deeper bond, right? I would feel bad if I had a long-term relationship with a business partner. I'd feel bad if I had to change suppliers, or if I had to go find somebody else to satisfy this, or if they stopped making the product that I use. The ingredient for my raw materials or whatnot. I had to find somebody new. I'd be bummed out if I had to do that. It would, it's part of business, but it is what it is, right? That's the nature of that type of relationship. Okay? Buyer-seller partnerships. So in this particular case, beyond just long-term, buying and selling, we'll probably have some type of strategic kind of initiative. It might be a contract that we've signed, something that's going to be a little bit more formal. This reciprocity notion is that we both mutually benefit from this, and we recognize that our continued business together is helping each other. And there's something like strategic about that. There's something that we want to maintain or continue in some fashion, right? And again, this would suggest that we probably have some long-term contracts in place, that this is going to be more of a formal engagement, that we'll do business together in the future. Once we move beyond this, and again, remember, there's 2 components that are increasing every time we go through one of these levels. The amount of time that we're spending together, but also the amount of information and trust we're sharing with each other. Okay, like any interpersonal relationship, you and a friend, you and a loved one, you and a family member, the more time you spend with them, and the more you talk to them, the stronger your relationship. Relationships can't grow if you don't spend time, if you don't talk to them. They just can't. It's impossible. Okay, so same with businesses, exact same thing. Right? So number 5 then is going to be a strategic alliance. Now this gets a little bit more tricky. Now we're saying, look, we've been doing business a long time. I trust what you're doing. You trust what I'm doing. Let's form a strategic alliance which suggests that you're going to be my supplier for this raw material, and I won't look for any other suppliers. Like this is a little bit more, we're seriously dating now. We're not going to look at others. I'm not looking for a new supplier, and you're not going to supply my competitors. Does that make sense? I mean, this is like, we're bonding here, we're gonna do business together, and if I form this relationship in a strategic alliance, then I take you off the board as a supplier for my competitors. They can't rely on you as a source. And this is gonna be a long-term thing, we're gonna have a contract, I promise you we'll have this amount of business, you promise me a certain product quality or level of quality that I can anticipate moving forward in the future, and it'll all work out, right? That's that. Okay, two others, a networked alliance or a networked organization. So this is kind of a cool one. Like Matt and I, we do business. Well, Matt has a friend who also has a business, and so he introduces me to that third business, and now we start doing business because of our relationship, right? And now we've got a network going on. I've got a new relationship because of that relationship, and the network grows. That's a networked alliance, networked thing. Very last one is when one company actually takes an ownership interest in another. It's called vertical marketing system. We might call it vertically integrated, either upward or downward, where I'm McDonald's and I actually buy cattle companies because we go through a lot of beef. And so I'm going to buy the supplier, right? I'm going to buy the supplier because that guarantees what we do. Apple bought the Sapphire company. That article is one of those articles. They bought a company to make Sapphire. Vertically integrated. Okay? All right. I know we're up against time, right? Or do we still have time? No. Jimmy says no. I think this is one of the first times we've gone the whole time. Maybe. I don't know. Sorry, or you're welcome, I guess. I don't know what it is. Have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will check over the real estate thing. What number you did?
See ya.
I will see. Maybe I should.